Hello there, my sleepy citizens. Tonight, we journey into the shadowed streets of Gotham City, where mysteries lurk and the Dark Knight stands vigilant against the forces of chaos. We bring you tales of Batman, uncovering different sides of the man behind the mask. And as our journey through these stories winds down, a calm ambience of Gotham's streets will carry you throughout the night, bringing you to restful sleep without interruptions from any ads. If you enjoy these tales, please be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what story you'd like to hear next. But for now, let's get cozy and step into the world of Gotham. Twilight settled over Gotham like a weary sigh, painting the sky in watercolor hues of amber and violet. From his vantage point atop the Ellsworth building, Batman observed the transformed landscape of Robinson Park with narrowed eyes. What had once been a manicured urban sanctuary now resembled a primeval jungle, its borders defined by massive walls of interwoven vines and roots that had erupted through concrete and asphalt in defiance of the city's architectural construction. Oracle, satellite thermal imaging of Robinson Park, Batman requested, his voice low and measured in the gathering darkness. Coming through now, Barbara Gordon's voice replied in his cowl. The internal temperature of the park is nearly 15 degrees warmer than the surrounding city blocks. The vegetation has created its own microclimate. In less than 48 hours, poison ivy had transformed Robinson Park into something unrecognizable, a botanical fortress with living walls that grew higher by the hour. City services had been cut off, police barricades established at a safe distance, and negotiators had tried unsuccessfully to establish communication. "Any movement from the hostages?" Batman asked, adjusting his cowl's optics to scan for heat signatures. "Still concentrated in the central pavilion," Oracle confirmed. 7 distinct signatures, consistent with Councillor Reeves and his staff. Vitals appear stable, but there's been no communication since Ivy's video ultimatum. Batman recalled the footage that had dominated Gotham's news cycles. Pamela Isley, resplendent on a throne of flowering vines, her skin with the slight green tint that manifested when her powers were at their peak. Behind her, the frightened but unharmed council members sat surrounded by gently swaying vegetation. "Your city chokes on its own waste," she had declared, her voice simultaneously seductive and commanding. "You draft meaningless environmental regulations while signing permits for factories that poison our groundwater. The time for half measures is over." Her ultimatum was simple: comprehensive environmental legislation to be drafted and passed within 3 days, or the hostages would become permanent residents of her green domain. "GDPD's planning a tactical assault at dawn," Oracle continued. "Commissioner Gordon is stalling, but the mayor's under pressure to resolve this quickly." "A direct assault would be disastrous," Batman replied. "Ivy's powers are amplified within her domain. She'd sensed their approach long before they breached the perimeter." He studied the undulating wall of vegetation, noting how it pulsed slightly, as if breathing. Ivy had grown more powerful in recent months. Her connection to the green, the elemental force that connected all plant life, strengthening in ways that concerned even the Justice League. This was no mere hostage situation. It was an ecological revolution with Pamela Isley as its radiant, vengeful goddess. "I'm sending you updated atmospheric readings," Oracle said. "The pollen count inside the park is off the charts. Some of these compounds aren't in any database. Likely psychoactive, definitely designed to enhance Ivy's pheromone control. Your standard rebreather won't be sufficient." Batman touched the utility compartment at his belt. Understood. I'll make a stop at the Batcave before infiltration. Bruce, Oracle's voice softened slightly. Her demands aren't entirely unreasonable. The environmental package she's demanding would actually benefit Gotham long term. It would, he acknowledged, but yielding to ecological terrorism sets a dangerous precedent, and Ivy's version of environmental balance leaves little room for human needs. He paused, watching as a flock of birds settled into the canopy of mutated trees. Besides, this isn't about legislation. Not really. What do you mean? She wants validation, recognition that her concerns have always been legitimate. The counselor represents everything she despises. Bureaucracy that acknowledges problems but takes minimal action. This is personal for her. The last rays of sunlight slipped behind Gotham's western skyline, plunging the city into darkness. Within the park, bioluminescent flowers began to glow in purples and blues, creating an otherworldly landscape that pulsed with life. I'm going in after midnight, Batman decided. The hostages have been unharmed so far, but Ivy's patience isn't infinite. I'll alert Alfred to prepare the botanical countermeasures, Oracle replied. And Bruce, be careful. Ivy's different this time, more committed. So am I, Batman answered simply, before launching himself into the gathering darkness. The Batcave hummed with quiet efficiency as Bruce made his final preparations. Alfred moved with practiced precision, helping him don a specialized version of the Batsuit, one designed specifically for confrontations with Pamela Isley. The polymer coating should resist most adhesive pollens and corrosive plant secretions, Alfred explained, securing the reinforced gauntlets. And the fabric weave contains a graphene layer that may provide some resistance to her more aggressive flora. Bruce nodded, testing the suit's flexibility. The rebreather, modified with the new filtration system Master Fox developed. It should neutralize her known pheromone compounds, though I must caution you about its limitations. 18 minutes of continuous use before the system requires a 2-minute regeneration cycle. Bruce secured the rebreather to his utility belt. I'll use it sparingly. A subtle alert chimed from the Bat computer. Lucius Fox's face appeared on the main display, his expression serious but calm. Bruce, I've finished analyzing those soil samples from Robinson Park's perimeter, Fox began. The cellular mutation rate in the vegetation is accelerating. She's fundamentally altering the plant's genetic structure, meaning they're developing neural-like networks, simplified but definite. Bruce frowned. She's making them more intelligent, or extending her own consciousness through them, Fox suggested. Either way, it changes the tactical landscape. These plants won't just react instinctively, they might anticipate, possibly even strategize. Any weaknesses? Fox held up a small device that resembled a compact ultrasonic emitter. This generates a frequency that disrupts the cellular communication within her modified plants. It won't kill them, but it should disorient them temporarily, give you windows of opportunity. The range is limited, 3 meters at most, and it's a prototype, so use it sparingly. Bruce nodded. Have it sent to the usual drop point. More thing, Fox added. The bioluminescence we're seeing in the park isn't just for show. The light wavelengths appear to be part of how she's controlling the plant network. Your cowl's visual filters should help you see patterns that might reveal weaker points in her defensive grid. As the communication ended, Alfred handed Bruce a small case containing several specialized batarangs and a set of capsules in varying colors. Cryogenic compounds for the more aggressive specimens, Alfred explained. The blue capsules contain a fast-acting but temporary growth inhibitor, non-lethal as per your specifications, and this contains the latest antitoxin for her known pheromonal compounds. Batman moved toward the Batmobile but paused briefly. Her cause isn't wrong, Alfred, just her methods. Indeed, sir, Alfred replied thoughtfully. The line between activist and terrorist has always been drawn by those with the luxury of patience. Perhaps Dr. Isley simply ran out of both. The Batmobile disappeared into the tunnel, leaving Alfred alone with his thoughts, faithful sentinel to a war fought in the shadows between those who would save the world by very different means. Robinson Park's southern perimeter pulsed with life, the massive wall of intertwined vegetation shifting subtly as if breathing in the night air. Police barricades stood a cautious 100 yards back, their flashing lights casting rhythmic blue and red patterns across the scene. Batman observed from the shadows, using his cowl's enhanced vision to identify potential entry points. The botanical wall appeared seamless at first glance, but thermal imaging revealed cooler spots where the growth was less dense. Oracle, I'm at the south entrance, he sub-vocalized, sending you visual feed now. As Barbara analyzed the imagery, Batman noticed waves of subtle movement rippling through the wall, corresponding with faint pulses of bioluminescence deep within the tangled growth. It's communication, Oracle realized. The plants are sharing information through light patterns, which means they're also sharing information about potential intruders. Near the ground, where the roots had erupted through concrete, the bioluminescence was notably dimmer. Batman moved silently toward a section where massive roots had created a slight overhang. To the officers stationed nearby, he would be nothing more than another shadow in a night full of them. Reaching the chosen spot, Batman activated Fox's sonic device at its lowest setting. The vegetation nearest him shuddered slightly, its movements becoming less coordinated. A small gap appeared between two massive root structures, just large enough for him to slip through. I'm going in, he informed Oracle. Maintain communication for as long as possible, but be prepared for interference. Batman took a final breath of relatively clean air before activating his specialized rebreather and slipping through the gap. The transition was immediate and disorienting. From the cool, open night of Gotham to a humid, close environment that resembled a tropical greenhouse. The air was thick with pollen, visible as golden motes drifting through shafts of bioluminescent light. The familiar pathways of Robinson Park had disappeared, replaced by a maze of overgrown vegetation. What had once been manicured lawns now sprouted chest-high grasses that whispered against each other as if sharing secrets. Ornamental trees had transformed into towering giants with twisted, gnarled trunks. Flowering vines draped across everything, their blooms pulsing with gentle blue and purple light. Batman moved cautiously, using his grapnel to ascend to the lower branches of a massive oak that offered better visibility. From this vantage point, he could see the central pavilion, now transformed into what appeared to be a living throne room. The columns were wrapped in flowering vines, the dome partially collapsed and replaced with an organic canopy. And there, seated on a throne of twisted roots and blossoming orchids, was Poison Ivy herself. Even from this distance, her presence was commanding. Her skin with its green tint seemingly more vibrant, her red hair intertwined with living vines that moved gently around her. She appeared to be speaking, though he couldn't hear her words. The hostages sat in a semicircle before her, contained within what looked like individual pods of large cupped leaves. They appeared unharmed, though their postures suggested exhaustion and resignation. I have visual on Ivy and the hostages, Batman reported. Councillor Reeves and 6 staffers, all contained in some form of plant enclosure, appear conscious but subdued. He stopped abruptly as something brushed against his awareness, a sweet, almost intoxicating scent that penetrated even his specialized rebreather. A momentary wave of disorientation washed over him. She knows I'm here, he realized, noting how the pattern of bioluminescence had changed, flowing toward his position like searching fingers of light. Batman fired his grapnel toward another tree, swinging to a position obscured by dense, mutated ferns. The plants below him stirred, turning like sunflowers tracking the sun. Interesting approach, Batman. Ivy's voice drifted through the humid air, somehow carrying perfectly despite the distance. Most men announce themselves more directly. The hostages, Ivy, he responded, using his voice modulator to project without revealing his position. Release them. Your quarrel is with the council's policies, not its staff. A melodic laugh floated through the transformed park. Always so direct, so male in your approach. But surely you've noticed this isn't a simple hostage situation. This is a revolution, a reclaiming, a glimpse of Gotham's true potential. Batman used her monologue as cover to move again, firing his grapnel toward a massive statue that had been nearly consumed by vegetation. As he swung, a whip-like vine narrowly missed, entangling his legs. You're faster than my babies remember, Ivy called out, amusement coloring her voice. But they're learning. Landing on the statue's shoulder, Batman could now see the pavilion clearly. The hostages were indeed alive, though their expressions were dazed, suggesting exposure to Ivy's pollen. Councillor Reeves appeared the most affected, his eyes unfocused. They're being drugged, Batman sub-vocalized to Oracle, pollen-based, likely enhancing her suggestibility compounds. Whether Oracle received his message was unclear, as no response came through his cowl. He was on his own, standard operating procedure, but complicated by the living, responsive environment that seemed to function as an extension of Ivy's consciousness. The legislation she's demanding, Batman called out, moving again as vines began to creep up the statue toward him. It would take months to implement properly. Release the hostages and I'll ensure the council considers your proposals. Considers? Ivy's voice sharpened, and the plants throughout the park responded, their movements becoming more agitated. They've been considering since before you wore that cape, Dark Knight. Considering while our rivers turned toxic. Considering is what politicians do instead of acting. Batman dropped from the statue just as vines engulfed the spot where he'd been standing. He rolled through undergrowth that reached for him with thorny tendrils, deploying a small canister that released a cloud of growth inhibitor. The plants recoiled, their movements momentarily sluggish. Your methods won't bring lasting change, he persisted, moving steadily closer to the pavilion through the momentary gap. They'll bring military intervention. Scorched earth policies. Is that what you want for your baby? A massive mutated pitcher plant erupted from the ground before him, its mouth yawning wide to reveal digestive fluids that steamed in the cool night air. Behind it, more carnivorous growths emerged, forming a living barrier between him and the pavilion. What I want, Ivy replied, her voice suddenly closer, is respect for the natural order, something your precious civilization has forgotten. She appeared atop a ridge of roots that had risen from the ground like a natural stage. The vines in her hair had grown more numerous, and her skin seemed to pulse with the same bioluminescence as the plants around her. Her eyes, brilliant green and unnaturally bright, fixed on him with predatory focus. You've always understood, haven't you? she continued, moving with fluid grace as plants bent to form steps beneath her feet. More than the others. You see the balance that's been destroyed, yet you still serve a system that prioritizes quarterly profits over planetary survival. Batman stood his ground as the circle of carnivorous plants tightened around him. His hand moved subtly toward his utility belt, fingers finding the specialized batarangs. I serve justice, he corrected her, and taking innocent people hostage isn't justice, Pamela. It's terrorism. Something flickered across her expression, a momentary hesitation, perhaps even doubt, before her features hardened again. Terrorism? Is that what you call it when nature reclaims what was stolen? When the voiceless finally find a champion? Look around you, Batman. This isn't destruction. It's creation. At what cost? He challenged. The people you're holding, they have families, children. They're not abstractions, Pamela. They're individuals with as much right to life as your plants. My plants don't poison watersheds or clear-cut forests, she retorted, but there was a defensive note in her voice now. Batman took a calculated risk. Neither does Maria Chen. Ivy paused. Who? Councillor Reeves' chief of staff. The woman you've encased in flowering purple pods. She has 2 children and a dissertation on sustainable urban ecosystems. She spent her career trying to implement exactly the kind of changes you're demanding, working within a system designed to resist those changes. This was the gambit, appealing to the scientist and environmental crusader that still existed beneath Ivy's increasingly radical exterior. Pamela Isley had once been a brilliant botanist, driven to extremism by a combination of chemical exposure and genuine ecological concern. Ivy's expression flickered again, and she glanced back toward the pavilion, her gaze finding the woman Batman had mentioned. The hesitation lasted only seconds before her resolve visibly hardened again. Ally in a den of enemies means little, she declared, though with less certainty than before. The Council has voted down every meaningful environmental protection for the past decade. Words and proposals and studies accomplish nothing. Only direct action brings change. Then target those responsible, Batman pressed, sensing a potential opening. Not their staff, not people who share your goals, but disagree on methods. The Council will never pass your legislation under duress, he continued. Even if they appear to yield, they'll reverse course the moment the crisis ends. You know this, Pamela. Coercion creates resistance, not conversion. For a moment, genuine conflict showed in her expression. The scientist wrestling with the zealot, reason against righteousness. The carnivorous plants surrounding Batman wavered in their advance, mirroring her indecision. Then something hardened in her eyes. Enough philosophy, she snapped. You've come for the hostages. Take them, if you can reach them. She gestured sharply, and the vegetation between Batman and the pavilion erupted into frenzied growth. Vines shot from the ground like striking serpents. Thorny branches whipped toward him from all directions, and clouds of golden pollen filled the air. Batman activated Fox's sonic device at full power, creating a momentary bubble of disorientation among the aggressive flora. Using that brief advantage, he fired his grapnel toward the pavilion's dome and launched himself upward. But Ivy had anticipated this. As he swung through the air, a massive flower bud erupted from the pavilion's roof, blooming explosively to release a dense cloud of reddish pollen directly into his path. Despite his rebreather, the concentration was too great to filter completely. His vision blurred momentarily, muscles responding a fraction slower than commanded. He adjusted his trajectory mid-swing, landing on one of the pavilion's wrapped columns rather than in the center as planned. The stone was barely visible beneath a sheath of writhing vines that immediately began to encircle his legs. "Your toys won't save you here," Ivy called out, approaching the pavilion with measured steps as plants formed a path beneath her feet. "This is my domain. Every cell, every spore, every molecule of oxygen you breathe is under my control." Batman triggered a cryo-batarang, freezing the vines attempting to entrap him. The plants shattered as he broke free, but more immediately grew to replace them. The hostages were mere yards away now, their plant enclosures pulsing with anxious energy as the conflict escalated. The rebreather indicator was flashing now, less than 5 minutes of filtration remaining. Batman needed to change tactics. Direct confrontation wasn't working, and the hostages were too vulnerable in this environment. "You're right," he said simply. Ivy paused, suspicion evident in her expression. "About?" "The failure of traditional channels." Batman took a deliberate step away from the hostages, drawing her attention fully to himself. The system resists meaningful environmental change because the profit incentives point in the opposite direction. That's not speculation, it's documented fact. Confusion flickered across her features. "Are you agreeing with me?" "With your assessment, yes. With your methods, no." He maintained eye contact, watching as uncertainty tempered her anger. "The legislation you're demanding, it addresses symptoms, not causes. You know this. You're too intelligent not to see it." Something shifted in her posture, the zealot receding slightly, the scientist emerging. "Explain." "Corporate influence, regulatory capture, election financing that ensures pro-business candidates." Batman spoke quickly but clearly, aware of his diminishing window of protected breathing. "Your legislation would impose restrictions that would be systematically undermined before the ink dried. You need deeper change." Ivy studied him, genuine interest replacing some of the hostility in her gaze. "Go on." Wayne Enterprises has been developing a private-public partnership model for environmental remediation, self-funding through carbon capture and sustainable resource development, bypassing the traditional regulatory framework entirely. "Pretty words," Ivy said, but her tone had softened slightly. "Not promises. Projects already in motion. The Robinson River Restoration Initiative begins next month. Wayne's new bacterial filtration system removes industrial contaminants while preserving native microbiomes. The pilot showed 93% reduction in heavy metal concentrations. This caught her attention completely. As a botanist, she would understand the significance of such results. That's not possible with current technology. It wasn't until recently. Batman took another careful step, not toward the hostages, but toward her. "The change you want is happening. Not through legislation, but through innovation and private initiative. But holding these people hostage jeopardizes those projects, creates resistance, reinforces the narrative that environmental protection is extremism." She was listening now, genuinely engaged. The plants around them had settled into a less aggressive posture, responding to her shifting emotional state. Even the hostages' enclosures had relaxed slightly. "The counselor," Batman pressed gently. "He's not your enemy. He's an obstacle, yes, but one that can be circumvented rather than confronted. The staff you're holding, they include allies who could help implement the very changes you're fighting for." Ivy's gaze shifted to the hostages, lingering on Maria Chen. "She did try," Ivy admitted quietly. "Before the council voted down the watershed protection bill, she came to me, consulted me on the technical aspects, and she'll continue that work." Batman assured her. If you let her. You're asking me to trust a system that has consistently betrayed both science and nature, Ivy said, but her voice held more weariness than conviction now. I'm asking you to recognize that your goals are achieved through balanced ecosystems, not monocultures, Batman replied. Human participation in environmental restoration isn't just possible, it's necessary. Just as plant diversity creates resilience, so does diversity of approach. Something shifted in Ivy's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the fundamental ecological truth in his argument. Her expression softened further, scientific reasoning gradually reasserting itself over emotional reaction. Show me, she said finally. This river restoration project, the filtration system, let me see the data, the implementation plans. Release the hostages, Batman countered gently. All of them. Then we can discuss next step. The moment hung in balance. Ivy's ambition for environmental redemption weighed against her distrust of conventional authority and her belief in direct action. The plants around them seemed to hold their breath, waiting for her decision. Finally, she raised her hands in a graceful gesture, and the plant enclosures around the hostages began to unfurl, releasing them from their captivity. They stumbled free, disoriented but largely unharmed. Get them out, Ivy instructed, her voice carrying a mixture of resignation and determination. But you and I aren't finished. I want to see these projects, evaluate them myself. Agreed, Batman said, moving among the council's staff, supporting those who struggled to stand. Councillor Reeves was the most affected, his movements sluggish and coordination poor. Batman guided the hostages toward the southern edge of the park, where the living wall had begun to part, creating an exit corridor. As they moved, he noted that his exposure to the unfiltered pollen was beginning to affect his coordination. Vision blurring slightly at the edges, he focused on the task at hand, getting the civilians to safety before his own condition deteriorated further. The exit corridor was almost beautiful, flowering vines creating a tunnel of soft bioluminescence that guided their way toward freedom. With each step, Batman felt the pollen's effects growing stronger in his system. Keep moving, he instructed the hostages, supporting Councillor Reeves, who leaned heavily against him. Medical teams are waiting. Behind them, Ivy watched their retreat from atop her living throne, expression unreadable in the shifting patterns of plant light. As they neared the perimeter wall, Batman activated his comms again. Oracle, status? GCPD medical units in position, came the welcome reply, clearer now as they approached the edge of Ivy's domain. Gordon has established a secure extraction corridor. The living wall parted before them like a curtain, revealing the world beyond Robinson Park. Police barricades, flashing lights, and the familiar urban landscape of Gotham. Medical personnel rushed forward as they emerged, guiding the disoriented council staff toward waiting ambulances. Batman. Commissioner Gordon approached, keeping a wary eye on the pulsing vegetation. We didn't expect a negotiated release. What's her play? A chance to evaluate alternative approaches, Batman replied, fighting the increasing effects of pollen exposure. She's listening, Jim. Don't send in tactical teams. Gordon studied him with concern. You don't look well. Pollen exposure, it'll pass. Batman straightened with effort. The hostages need medical attention. Mild dehydration, pollen-induced disorientation, no physical injuries. And Pamela? Batman glanced back at the living corridor, which had begun to slowly close. She's waiting for proof that traditional environmental channels can actually deliver meaningful change. Gordon's expression was skeptical. And if they can't? Then we'll have a much bigger problem than one park, Batman acknowledged. She's becoming more powerful, Jim, more connected to the green. What we've seen here is a fraction of what she could do if fully provoked. The mayor's demanding a full assault at dawn, military support, defoliants, the works. Stall him, Batman instructed. 24 hours. I have a different approach. Gordon nodded reluctantly. 24 hours. But if she makes any aggressive moves, she won't, Batman said. Not if we give her reason to believe in alternatives. Dawn found Bruce Wayne in the Batcave's laboratory section, still working despite Alfred's increasingly pointed suggestions about the benefits of rest. The samples collected from the hostages had proven enlightening. Ivy's new pollen compounds were significantly more sophisticated than previous versions. Fascinating, Lucius Fox commented, studying the molecular models displayed on the main screen. She's created a targeted neurochemical that affects specific receptors associated with susceptibility to suggestion, while leaving critical thinking partially intact. Not mind control exactly, more like enhanced persuasion? Bruce nodded, rubbing his reddened eyes. I need something to demonstrate good faith to Ivy tonight. The river restoration project is real, but still largely conceptual. She'll need more than proposals. Perhaps, Lucius suggested thoughtfully, what Dr. Isley needs is not just evidence of environmental projects, but acknowledgement of her own expertise. Bruce looked up, interest piqued. Go on. Wayne Enterprises' bioengineering division has been struggling with the bacterial delivery system for the river cleaner. Our current methods achieve the 93% contaminant reduction, but the bacterial colonies don't self-sustain as theorized. What we need is a specialist in plant bacterial symbiosis, someone exactly like Pamela Isley, Bruce realized. Before her transformation, Dr. Isley was publishing groundbreaking research in exactly this field, Lucius confirmed. She understands things about plant microbe interactions that our team hasn't been able to replicate. You're suggesting offering her collaboration rather than just showing her our work? Precisely, Lucius said with satisfaction. Don't just show her what Wayne Enterprises is doing for the environment. Invite her to improve it. Alfred nodded approvingly, a most elegant solution, acknowledging both her grievances and her expertise in one gesture. It could work, Bruce acknowledged, but we'll need something tangible tonight. I believe I have just the thing, Lucius smiled. Our prototype bioremediation pods, portable, independently verifiable, and demonstrate the technology in action rather than just on paper. Perfect. Have a complete set prepared, along with full technical documentation and an official Wayne Enterprises consultant contract. Draft the terms for complete independent oversight of environmental compliance. Alfred raised an eyebrow. A bold move, Master Bruce. The board may have questions about bringing a known eco-terrorist into the corporate structure. Not if it's presented as recruiting the world's leading expert in bioremediation to ensure the success of a high-profile environmental initiative, Bruce countered. Besides, keeping Pamela Isley constructively engaged serves both Wayne Enterprises' public interests and Batman's security concerns. Dusk settled over Gotham as Batman approached Robinson Park from the northern perimeter, carrying a specialized case containing the bioremediation pods and documentation. A distinct pathway had formed in the living wall, not fully open but visibly thinner, suggesting Ivy was expecting his arrival. The living barrier parted as he approached, creating an opening just wide enough for him to pass through. This felt less like infiltration and more like a formal, if cautious, invitation. The park's interior had continued its transformation. What had been chaotic overgrowth now showed evidence of deliberate cultivation. Pathways lined with phosphorescent fungi, decorative arrangements of flowering vines, and water features created by redirected park fountains. Batman found Ivy seated on a living throne that appeared to have grown directly from the earth, not the dramatic command center of the previous night, but something more contemplative. Her expression as he approached was guarded, but not immediately hostile. "You returned," she observed. "I half expected to see military defoliation teams instead." "That option was discussed," Batman acknowledged. "I convinced them to pursue alternatives." Ivy's eyes narrowed slightly. "For how long? Until I release the park? Until I surrender myself to Arkham's tender mercies? Until we determine whether there's a better path forward than mutual destruction?" He placed the case he carried on a flat stone surface nearby. "You've been reshaping the park." She seemed pleased that he'd noticed. "From defensive necessity to something more intentional. A demonstration of what urban spaces could become if humans allowed proper ecological function. You've created a functional ecosystem within days. Nature knows how to heal itself when barriers are removed," she replied. "I merely accelerated the process." "I assume that contains the evidence you promised?" "Evidence and an alternative approach." Batman opened the case, revealing the bioremediation pods nestled in protective compartments alongside digital tablets containing documentation. The Robinson River Restoration Initiative. Not just proposals, but functioning technology. Ivy's interest was immediate. She approached the case, plants creating steps beneath her bare feet. With delicate green-tinged fingers, she lifted one of the bioremediation pods. Pseudomonas putida variants, she identified immediately, examining with expert precision. Modified for enhanced heavy metal sequestration. Interesting delivery system. Wayne Enterprises technology? Batman nodded. Phase 1 implementation begins next month at 3 contamination hotspots along the river. The bacteria extract heavy metals from the water column and sediment. Ivy accessed one of the tablets, reviewing the technical documentation with the rapid comprehension of a trained scientist. Her expression shifted between skepticism and reluctant appreciation. "It's not entirely without merit," she finally admitted. "More substantial than typical corporate greenwashing, but ultimately insufficient without compatible plant systems to support long-term microbial health. Which is why the project needs your expertise," Batman said directly. Ivy stilled, suspicion immediately returning to her features. "What?" Batman retrieved a final document from the case, the consultant contract Lucius had prepared. "Wayne Enterprises is offering you an independent oversight role in the River Restoration Initiative. Full access to all project data, veto authority over implementation decisions, and public reporting rights." She stared at him in disbelief. "You're offering me a job. We're offering acknowledgement of your expertise and legitimate concerns, a channel for your environmental advocacy that doesn't involve hostage-taking or terrorism." Ivy took the contract, scanning its terms with evident disbelief that slowly transformed into thoughtful consideration. "This is a Bruce Wayne peace offering. He sent you as his messenger." Batman neither confirmed nor denied this. "Wayne understands that environmental restoration requires specialized knowledge. Your research on plant-bacterial symbiosis remains unparalleled in the field. And in exchange for this consultation role, I'm expected to... what? Return Robinson Park to its manicured, ecologically sterile state? Submit myself to Arkham for rehabilitation? In exchange for meaningful participation in Gotham's environmental restoration, the expectation is that you'll pursue your goals through this channel rather than through force, Batman replied evenly. The park's future would be part of broader negotiations once you've verified the legitimacy of the restoration initiative. Why should I trust Wayne Enterprises? She asked finally. Or any corporate entity? Their environmental record is built on broken promises and regulatory manipulation, which is precisely why the contract includes independent verification rights and public reporting authority, Batman pointed out. You wouldn't be trusting Wayne, you'd be verifying, monitoring, and holding them publicly accountable. And the legal charges currently pending against me. Commissioner Gordon has indicated willingness to recommend psychiatric supervision rather than incarceration, provided the hostage situation resolves peacefully and you commit to non-violent advocacy going forward. She studied him carefully. You're offering me legitimacy, a seat at the table I've been trying to overturn. Why now? Why after all these years of conflict? Because Gotham's environmental challenges have reached a critical point where neither conventional regulation nor radical action alone can address them, Batman replied honestly. And because your demonstrated abilities in this park prove you could contribute to solutions if given appropriate channels. Ivy looked around at the transformed environment she had created, a testament to both her power and her vision. The entire park seemed to breathe with her contemplation. I would require amendments to this contract, she said finally. Specific guarantees about implementation timelines, transparency mechanisms, and independent verification procedures. Batman felt a carefully controlled surge of hope. Those can be negotiated, and this park remains a demonstration project under my supervision, not returned to its previous state, but adapted into a model of urban ecological restoration that the public can experience and learn from. Limited public access initially, expanding as safety parameters are established. Educational components highlighting ecological principles demonstrated in the park. Ivy nodded slowly, decision crystallizing in her expression. I will review your river initiative data thoroughly. If it proves as substantial as presented, I am willing to consider this alternative approach. She fixed him with an intense gaze. But understand this, Batman. I haven't abandoned my principles or goals. I'm simply exploring whether they might be achieved through means that don't require immediate confrontation. Understood, Batman acknowledged, relief carefully masked. The next step is demonstrating good faith by allowing limited access to city officials to verify conditions in the park. Ivy tensed visibly at this, plants around them responding with subtle defensive movements, not bulldozers and defoliation teams. Environmental assessment specialists, Batman clarified, to document what you've created here, not destroy it. She considered this, then made a decisive gesture. The living wall that had surrounded the park began to shift, opening multiple controlled access points around the perimeter. Tell Gordon his specialists may enter at the west entrance, she decided, unarmed with documentation equipment only. I will escort them personally. Batman nodded. I'll convey your terms. This is an opportunity, Pamela, for both sides to move beyond the cycle of ecological damage and radical response. She studied him with those unnaturally vibrant green eyes. Perhaps, or perhaps it's simply a new battlefield for the same fundamental conflict. She touched a flowering vine affectionately. But my children are patient. They understand that some victories require seasons of growth, not moments of force. As Batman prepared to depart, Ivy added one final thought. You know, Batman, for all your technological prowess, You've never fully understood the power of growth, how something as soft as a seedling can eventually split concrete, how roots can bring down walls given sufficient time. She gestured to the transformed park around them. Perhaps that's the real lesson here, that change doesn't always require dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it simply requires finding the right cracks in the existing structure and gently, persistently expanding them. Batman considered her words, recognizing the insight they contained and the warning. Ivy hadn't surrendered her revolutionary vision, she had simply adjusted her timeline and tactics. Growth requires appropriate conditions, he replied. This arrangement attempts to provide them for all parties involved. She inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the point without fully conceding it. As Batman departed through one of the newly created openings in the living wall, he carried both cautious optimism and clear-eyed realism. The Robinson Park crisis had been resolved without casualties, but the fundamental tensions between human development and environmental protection remained. What had changed was the possibility of new approaches, a recognition on both sides that neither unchecked development nor radical eco-terrorism offered sustainable paths forward. Ivy's botanical fortress would transition into something new, not quite the conventional park it had been, nor the primeval jungle she had initially created, but a carefully negotiated middle ground where different visions might eventually find common roots. As Gotham's night embraced him once more, Batman reflected that such compromises rarely satisfied anyone completely, yet often represented the only path toward genuine progress. In the delicate balance between justice and pragmatism, between ideal outcomes and workable solutions, lay the seeds of Gotham's potential future. Batman fired his grapnel toward a nearby building, the familiar sensation of ascent carrying him above the transformed landscape of Robinson Park. From this height, the integration of natural and urban elements appeared not as conflict, but as possibility, living systems and human structures finding ways to coexist, however tentatively. As he disappeared into Gotham's familiar shadows, the botanical fortress that had threatened the city's status quo was evolving into something new, a test case for cooperation rather than confrontation between humanity and nature. But Gotham rarely allowed its guardian more than fleeting moments of accomplishment before presenting new challenges. The delicate balance Batman had helped establish with Poison Ivy would need time to take root and grow, yet time was a luxury the Dark Knight seldom possessed. Even as the final arrangements were being made for environmental specialists to document Ivy's transformed ecosystem, Alfred's voice came through Batman's cowl with the measured calm that often preceded serious developments. Master Bruce, I believe you'll want to return to the cave at your earliest convenience. An alert has just come through from our monitoring systems. Batman paused on a gargoyle overlooking the financial district, the stone creature's weathered features impassive beneath his boots. Nature? Of the most dangerous sort, I'm afraid, Alfred replied cryptically. Human nature with professional focus. The Wayne Enterprises server farm in the East End registered an intrusion attempt 30 minutes ago. Most sophisticated I've seen in some time. Batman's posture shifted subtly, the environmental diplomat of moments ago receding as the detective emerged. Pattern, reminiscent of previous work by a certain gentleman with whom you've had professional disagreements. Alfred's tone conveyed volumes without specific details, security protocols observed even on encrypted channels. I'm on my way. The night air rushed past as Batman launched himself from the gargoyle, firing his grapnel toward the nearest building. his mind already analyzing possibilities, motivations, likely targets. Robinson Park and its flowering revolution faded from immediate concern, though not forgotten. Such was the rhythm of Gotham and its protector. One crisis navigated only to find another looming on the horizon. The lush green world of Poison Ivy's creation giving way to the cold precision of a very different adversary. From the organic to the tactical, from passionate ideology to calculated profession, from one worthy opponent to another. The Batmobile's engine roared to life minutes later, carrying its solitary passenger through Gotham's midnight streets toward the cave, where information awaited. Information that would set in motion a very different kind of confrontation, one that would require not negotiation and understanding, but silence, strategy, and the deadly serious game of hunter versus hunter. The silent strike was coming. Slade Wilson studied the dossier with clinical precision, his single eye absorbing every detail projected on the tablet screen. The encrypted file had arrived with a substantial down payment, $5 million, transferred to an offshore account. 5 more upon completion. Interesting, he murmured, swiping through classified security protocols, building schematics and personnel files. Gotham City wasn't his preferred hunting ground. The Bat complicated matters, but $10 million demanded consideration. His equipment lay prepared on the hotel bed. Reinforced tactical armor, sword forged from promethium alloy, customized rifle with specialized ammunition, combat knives, and various tools for urban infiltration. Each piece represented the apex of military technology, modified to his exacting specifications. Slade moved to the window, gazing across Gotham's glittering skyline. Somewhere in that urban maze, his target was going about their normal routine, unaware that Deathstroke had already calculated 14 different ways to end their life within 72 hours. "Let's play," Deathstroke whispered. Batman perched on the edge of the Wayne Tower's communication spire, the highest point in Gotham. The city sprawled below him, a chaotic constellation of lights, shadow, and perpetual movement. Oracle's voice came through his earpiece. "Got something interesting, Batman. GCPD intercepted chatter about a high-profile mercenary entering Gotham 2 days ago. Details?" Batman's voice was gravel. "Nothing concrete, just whispers from the usual informants. But there's been unusual activity at the construction sites for the new financial district. Security cameras disabled. 2 guards found unconscious but alive. Send me the locations. Already uploaded to your HUD. There's more. Commissioner Gordon received an anonymous tip about a potential assassination. No specifics on the target, just that it's scheduled within the next 72 hours. Cross-examine the construction sites with potential high-value targets in that sector. My algorithm flags 3 possibilities. Judge Maria Carlucci, who's presiding over the Falcone racketeering case. DA Andrew Hopkins, who's prosecuting half the remaining mob families. And City Councilwoman Rebecca Chen, who's pushing the anti-corruption bill. There's one more thing, Oracle said, her voice tightening. Based on the methodology, the precision of the infiltration, the tactical approach, I'm running comparisons with known operators. It's preliminary, but there's an 87% match with Deathstroke's operational signature. Batman froze momentarily. Slade Wilson, the world's deadliest assassin. A metahuman with enhanced strength, reflexes, and tactical intelligence. "Activate Protocol Watchtower," Batman commanded. "I want round-the-clock surveillance on all 3 potential targets. And send Nightwing the data." This wasn't a random criminal threat. If Deathstroke was in Gotham, someone was going to die. The clock was already ticking. Deathstroke moved like a ghost through the half-constructed skyscraper, his armor's adaptive camouflage rendering him nearly invisible against the exposed steel beams and unfinished concrete. 93 floors up, the wind howled through the skeleton of what would become Gotham's tallest structure, the perfect vantage point. Through his tactical scope, he could see into the offices of the Justice Center 6 blocks away. Thermals picked up 18 heat signatures working late. One matched the profile of his target. Deathstroke adjusted his position, the specialized rifle an extension of his body. The round in the chamber would punch through ballistic glass without fragmenting, maintaining lethal velocity. Working late tonight, he murmured. Predictable. The slight change in air pressure behind him was nearly imperceptible, a subtle shift that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. But Deathstroke wasn't anyone else. "You're earlier than I anticipated," he said without turning, his eye still fixed on the scope. "Step away from the edge slate." Batman's voice cut through the wind. Deathstroke slowly rose to his feet, the rifle held casually in one hand as he turned to face the dark night. "We both know you can't stop me. Not permanently." Batman stood 20 feet away on the same steel beam, his cape whipping in the violent winds. "There's no shot you can make that I can't prevent." "Perhaps," Deathstroke conceded, "but your presence here means you don't know who the target is, or when, or where the real shot will come from." He gestured toward the unfinished skyline around them. "So many vantage points, so many possibilities. You can't watch them all, Batman." "I don't need to." Batman took a step forward. "I just need to stop you." Deathstroke's laugh was cold. "How many times have we done this dance? You talk about stopping me, but we both know there are lines you won't cross. Lines I step over without hesitation. Last chance," Batman warned. "Surrender now." Deathstroke's answer came in the form of a flash grenade that detonated between them. By the time Batman's cowl filters adjusted to compensate, Deathstroke was gone, the rifle left behind on the beam, a decoy. The night had become a deadly game of chess, with Gotham's rooftops as the board. Deathstroke had made his opening move. Now Batman had to anticipate the next 3. Nightwing crouched behind the parapet of an Art Deco gargoyle high above Gotham's financial district. Through his mask's enhanced optics, he tracked movement across the scaffolding of the Conrad Hotel, a blur of orange and black that appeared and vanished between steel beams with inhuman speed. "I've got visual on Deathstroke," he reported. "North face of the Conrad, 70 floors up. He's rigging something to the construction crane." "Don't engage," Batman's voice commanded through the comm. "He wants to draw us into a divided response." Oracle's voice cut in. "Batman, I've been analyzing patterns. The Justice Center, where Judge Carlucci and DA Hopkins both have offices, is covered by sightlines from 6 different construction sites. But there's one location that has visibility to all 3 potential targets. The Gotham Royal Hotel," Batman concluded. "Exactly. The penthouse suite was reserved yesterday under a shell company, paid in cryptocurrency." Batman landed on the Gotham Royal Hotel's maintenance level, silently entering through a service door. The building's security system registered his presence before going into a controlled shutdown, Oracle's work providing him clear access. Inside, the penthouse was dark except for the ambient glow of Gotham's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Batman scanned the space, detecting nothing but immaculate luxury furniture. Then his cowl's enhanced vision caught it, micro-projectors hidden in corners of the room, a holographic setup. Batman pivoted just as the hidden door to the master bedroom swung open, I wondered when you'd figure it out, Deathstroke said, stepping into view. He wore his full combat armor but was conspicuously without his trademark sword or firearms. Though I expected you 20 minutes ago. You're slipping, Detective. Batman's eyes narrowed. Where's the real target, Slade? You still don't see it? Deathstroke shook his head. For the world's greatest detective, you've missed the obvious. Enlighten me. Deathstroke gestured toward the window with its panoramic view of Gotham. 3 high-profile potential targets, all with powerful enemies, all suddenly under protection because of an anonymous tip. He turned his masked face toward Batman. Tell me, who benefits when a city's elite security apparatus is focused entirely on 3 specific locations? Realization hit Batman like an electric current. The targets are decoys. Finally, Deathstroke said, almost sounding disappointed. While Gotham's finest protect a judge, a district attorney, and a councilwoman. The real target is somewhere else entirely, Batman finished. This was misdirection from the beginning. Not entirely. Deathstroke rolled his shoulders, subtly preparing for combat. The contract is very real, and it will be completed tonight. Batman's hand moved to his utility belt. Who's the target? That would be telling, Deathstroke replied. But I can offer you a choice. Stay here and fight me, which would be entertaining but ultimately pointless. Or try to unravel the real objective with what little time remains. There's a third option, Batman growled. I take you down now and end this. The first exchange happened faster than human eyes could track, a brutal ballet of strikes and counters that demolished a marble side table and sent crystal decanters shattering across imported tile. Deathstroke matched Batman move for move, the 2 warriors demolishing the luxury suite as their combat intensified. Through his comms, Batman could hear Oracle attempting to break through. Batman, we've got a situation developing at... Static interrupted the transmission as Deathstroke revealed a signal jammer attached to his gauntlet. No outside assistance, Deathstroke said. This is between professionals. Batman suddenly stopped, reassessing the situation. The penthouse reservation. The conspicuous scouting. You wanted me to find you. Half credit, Deathstroke replied. I knew you'd find me eventually. Better to choose the battlefield than have you crash my actual operation. Oracle, Batman spoke into his comm, knowing the signal was jammed but trying a different approach. If you can hear this, check Wayne Enterprises security. Priority Alpha. Deathstroke tilted his head slightly. Wayne Enterprises? Interesting guess, but incorrect. But Batman had seen what he needed to. The smallest reaction in Deathstroke's body language at the mention of Wayne. Not surprise, but confirmation. It was never about the Justice Center or the officials, Batman said. This is about Bruce Wayne. Deathstroke's silence was answer enough. Before Batman could process this information, Deathstroke struck with sudden ferocity, driving Batman backward through the penthouse doors and into the hallway. Our time together is up, Deathstroke announced, landing a kick that cracked the wall behind Batman. I have a schedule to keep. With explosive force, Deathstroke drove his fist into a support column beside them, triggering the fire suppression system. In the momentary distraction, Deathstroke struck Batman with a specialized taser disc that adhered to his chest plate. The Wayne Enterprises Gala, Deathstroke said, stepping back as Batman fought to remain standing, occurring right now at the Gotham Museum of Modern Art. So many valuable targets in one location. As Batman struggled against the electrical interference, Deathstroke turned toward the emergency exit. Consider our warm-up concluded. The main event awaits. Batman tore the taser disc from his armor and reactivated his comm system. Oracle, come in. Batman, we've been trying to reach you. There's a situation at the Modern Art Museum. The Wayne Gala. I know. Deathstroke's target is there. Nightwing is already en route, but he won't make it in time. GCPD were dispatched to the other locations. They're redirecting now. Who's the actual target? Unknown. The guest list includes 3 UN ambassadors, 2 foreign dignitaries, the mayor, and several Wayne Enterprises board members. Any of them could be the mark. Batman launched his grapple gun toward an adjacent building. What about Lucius Fox? He's hosting the event in Bruce Wayne's absence. That narrowed the possibilities. Lucius had been spearheading Wayne Enterprises' new cybersecurity division, developing systems that could render certain surveillance technologies obsolete. Batman landed silently on the museum's maintenance scaffold, entering through a service entrance. Through his cowl's enhanced audio, he could hear fragments of communication from the museum's security team, directing the evacuation of guests. Oracle, I need building schematics. Where would a sniper position for maximum coverage of the east exit? 3 optimal locations, she responded immediately. The mezzanine overlooking the sculpture garden, the mechanical room above the east corridor, or the installation crane, Batman finished, spotting the massive mechanical arm suspended above the museum's central atrium. Then he spotted it. The slightest movement on the installation crane's catwalk 90 feet above the atrium floor. Found him, Batman reported, already launching himself upward into the darkness where Gotham's deadliest assassin awaited. The installation crane's catwalk was narrow industrial steel, 30 inches wide with no safety railings, suspended beneath the museum's glass dome. Batman landed silently at one end, his cape settling around him as he surveyed the shadows. Right on schedule, came Deathstroke's voice from the darkness. The assassin materialized, his armor's advanced camouflage deactivating to reveal his position at the crane's control junction. In his hands was a customized rifle with an integrated suppressor. It's over, Slade, Batman stated, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space above the atrium. The targets are secure. Are they? Deathstroke sounded almost amused. Look below, Batman. Tell me what you see. Despite every instinct warning against taking his eyes off Deathstroke, Batman allowed himself a fraction of a second's glance downward. The evacuation continued, security personnel directing guests toward exits. Among them he could see Lucius Fox, surrounded by his protective detail, moving toward the east corridor. I see a failed contract, Batman responded. Whatever you planned, it's too late. Deathstroke shook his head slightly. You still don't understand. This was never about a quick kill. Some contracts require surgical precision. With blinding speed, Deathstroke raised the rifle and fired, not at the evacuees below, but at a junction box on the far wall. Sparks erupted as the museum's backup lighting system failed, plunging sections of the building into darkness. In the same motion, Deathstroke tossed the rifle aside and drew his sword. No firearms for this part, Deathstroke said. Professional courtesy. Batman shifted into a defensive stance, the narrow platform limiting his maneuverability. Why the theatrics, Slade? This isn't your style. The contract specified certain parameters. A death would be unfortunate, but a message must be delivered. Before Batman could process this information, Deathstroke attacked with devastating precision. The catwalk swayed dangerously as the two combatants exchanged a flurry of strikes. Batman deflected another sword strike with his gauntlet's reinforced blades. Who hired you? He demanded. Someone who understands your true identity, Bruce Wayne. The words landed with more impact than any physical blow. Batman's momentary shock created an opening that Deathstroke exploited, landing a kick that sent Batman skidding backward along the catwalk. Yes, Deathstroke confirmed. My client knows. An interesting leverage point, wouldn't you agree? What's the real contract? Batman demanded, regaining his footing. To confirm that Bruce Wayne and Batman are one and the same, and to deliver a message. Withdraw from the Werner acquisition, or your secret becomes public. The Werner Technologies deal. A small but brilliant cybersecurity firm that Wayne Enterprises was poised to acquire. Their quantum encryption methods would revolutionize digital security, and apparently threaten someone powerful enough to blackmail Bruce Wayne. Corporate espionage isn't your usual domain, Batman observed, looking for an opening in Deathstroke's guard. $10 million buys considerable domain expansion, Deathstroke replied. Now, shall we conclude our business? Accept the message and this ends tonight. Refuse? The threat hung in the air between them. Your client made a critical error, Batman stated flatly. He sent you. With explosive speed, Batman threw 3 batarangs simultaneously, not at Deathstroke, but at strategic points on the crane's support structure. The catwalk lurched violently as one section detached. Deathstroke maintained his balance perfectly on the now tilting platform, but the distraction gave Batman the opening he needed. He launched himself forward, cape spread wide to control his trajectory as he collided with Deathstroke at full force. Both men went over the edge of the catwalk, plummeting toward the atrium, 90 feet below. Time seemed to slow as Batman and Deathstroke fell through the open space of the atrium. With practiced precision, Batman fired his grapple gun toward an overhead beam, the line going taut and changing their trajectory. Deathstroke, never unprepared, had already deployed a specialized grappling device of his own. The 2 lines crossed in mid-air, tangling momentarily before both men swung in opposing arcs toward the massive abstract sculpture at the atrium's center. They crashed onto the installation, a modern piece consisting of interconnected metal platforms suspended at varying heights. Improvisation, Deathstroke commented, sounding genuinely impressed. Your specialty. Your client, Batman demanded, circling carefully on the unstable platform. Who is it? Professional confidentiality, Deathstroke responded, though I suspect you'll figure it out. The Werner Technologies acquisition threatens certain governmental surveillance capabilities. Draw your own conclusions. Batman narrowed his eyes. This goes beyond corporate espionage. Indeed, national security, some would argue. Deathstroke flexed his hand, and a secondary blade extended from his gauntlet. What message shall I deliver to my employer? That Batman refuses to comply? Or that Bruce Wayne will reconsider his business strategy? Tell them, Batman growled, that blackmail only works on those who have something to lose. Deathstroke tilted his head slightly. Everyone has something to lose, Batman. Even you. The assassin launched himself across the gap between platforms. Batman met him halfway, the 2 warriors colliding above the museum floor in a brutal exchange of strikes. They landed on the same platform, the metal surface groaning under their combined weight and momentum. The platform beneath them tilted dangerously as their combat stressed its suspension cables. You know, this changes nothing, Deathstroke said between strikes. If I fail, they'll simply hire someone else. Perhaps someone less selective about collateral damage. Batman caught Deathstroke's wrist mid-strike. Then I'll stop them too. Admirable, Deathstroke acknowledged, breaking Batman's grip with a counter technique, but unrealistic. You can't fight the entire intelligence apparatus. Watch me, Batman growled, landing a combination that drove Deathstroke backward toward the platform's edge. Time is running out, Batman. Make your choice. Already made. With that, Batman triggered a remote detonator. Small explosive charges severed the remaining support cables of the installation. The entire sculpture began to collapse, platforms dropping at different rates as their suspension failed. Deathstroke's single eye widened slightly, perhaps the only indication of surprise the assassin would ever show. Sacrificing the artwork to win the battle, not your usual approach. I bought the piece last week, Batman responded, already calculating his escape trajectory. As the platform gave way beneath them, both men leapt in different directions. The cacophony of metal striking marble echoed through the atrium as the multi-million-dollar installation crashed to the floor. The assassin had reached the mezzanine and was already moving toward an emergency exit. Batman fired his grapple gun, the hook embedding in the wall beside Deathstroke's head. A warning shot. "We're not finished," Batman declared. Deathstroke paused, turning slightly. "For tonight we are. The message has been delivered, the confirmation obtained." He tapped a control on his gauntlet. "Your identity for the Werner acquisition. Consider the implications carefully, Wayne." Before Batman could close the distance between them, smoke pellets detonated across the mezzanine. By the time Batman reached the emergency exit, Deathstroke had vanished. The GCPD moved through the museum with practiced efficiency. Commissioner Gordon stood beside the ruins of the abstract sculpture, his weathered face illuminated by the harsh glare of police floodlights. Property damage, public endangerment, interfering with an evacuation, Gordon listed, not looking up as Batman emerged from the shadows. Care to explain why one of the world's deadliest assassins was playing cat and mouse with you over $100 million art installation? Deathstroke was hired to deliver a message to Bruce Wayne. Wayne, what's the connection? Wayne Enterprises is acquiring Werner Technologies next week. Someone wants to prevent that from happening. Someone with enough resources to hire Deathstroke, Gordon mused. That narrows it down to about 50 possibilities, none of them pleasant. Across town, in the Batcave, Nightwing and Oracle waited as Batman arrived. Alfred stood nearby, his expression grave. "Master Bruce," Alfred began, "I've prepared the medical bay, assuming the usual post-Deathstroke requirements." Batman removed his cowl, revealing Bruce Wayne's face, tense with concentrated thought. "Just bruised ribs this time, Alfred. Deathstroke wasn't trying to kill me." "How comforting," Alfred remarked dryly. "Someone knows I'm Batman, and they hired Deathstroke to prove it," Bruce continued, moving to the central computer array where Oracle, Barbara Gordon, was already compiling data. Nightwing leaned against a console, his mask removed to reveal Dick Grayson's concerned expression. "Who has both that knowledge and the resources to hire Deathstroke?" "The list is unsettlingly long," Barbara responded. "Intelligence agencies, certain criminal organizations, rival corporations with government contracts. Focus on entities with interests in surveillance technology," Bruce directed. "Specifically, who would be threatened by Werner Technologies' quantum encryption system." "Already on it," Barbara confirmed. "NSA flagged Werner's patents 6 months ago. Chinese intelligence has made 3 separate approaches to their chief engineer, and LexCorp has a competing system in development that will be rendered obsolete." "So, what's the play?" Dick asked. "Call their bluff?" Bruce's expression hardened. "No, we complete the acquisition." Alfred raised an eyebrow. "Sir, if I may, That course of action seems to invite the very consequence this Deathstroke fellow warned against. It does, Bruce agreed, which is why we need to neutralize the threat before the acquisition finalizes next week. And how do we use that? Barbara asked. A rare, cold smile crossed Bruce's face. By making them fear something more than encryption technology. 3 nights later, Deathstroke stood on the balcony of a luxury apartment overlooking Gotham Harbor, holding a secure satellite phone that had just vibrated with an incoming call. Confirmation received, the digitally altered voice stated. The evidence you provided is conclusive. Wayne and Batman are the same. As contracted, Slade responded simply. Has Wayne made any moves regarding the acquisition? None. The Verna Technologies deal proceeds as scheduled. This complicates matters. We may require your services again, a more permanent solution. Double the previous amount. The target being the same, but this time permanent. Slade considered for a moment. I'll need 24 hours to consider. You have 12. The call disconnected. Slade placed the phone on a nearby table, turning to face the interior of the apartment. You can emerge now, he said calmly. The acoustical dampening field is active. They can't hear us. From the shadows stepped Batman, cowl in place, cape draped around him like living darkness. Director Raymond Chambers, Slade stated without hesitation when Batman demanded to know who had hired him. National Security Agency, Special Operations Division. Why tell me this? Batman questioned. Professional ethics would suggest confidentiality. Professional ethics also prohibit being manipulated into an assassination under false pretenses, Slade replied. Director Chambers has no authority to order a hit on an American citizen. No official channels would approve it, regardless of national security implications. He's operating outside official parameters, Batman concluded. With black budget resources and a private agenda, Slade confirmed. I don't appreciate being a pawn in internal intelligence community power struggles. What do you propose? I accept his contract, Slade said simply, and together, we ensure Director Chambers faces consequences for his extracurricular activities. No killing, Batman stated firmly. Agreed, Slade replied, for this operation. After a moment's hesitation, Batman clasped Slade's offered hand briefly, sealing a devil's bargain that neither man would have imagined possible. Director Chambers sat rigidly in his chair in the private dining room of an upscale restaurant. On one side stood Deathstroke, on the other, Batman. Between them, displayed on a secure tablet, was damning evidence of years of corruption, unauthorized operations, and conspiracy to commit murder. This is absurd, Chambers managed, his composed demeanor cracking. Every financial transaction, every unauthorized order, every illegal surveillance operation documented and verified, including your most recent contract to assassinate Bruce Wayne. What do you want? Chambers finally asked, his voice tight with contained rage. 3 things, Batman stated. First, you will resign immediately, citing health concerns. Second, all surveillance and interference with Verna Technologies ends permanently. Third, you will return all funds received from defense contractors and provide complete documentation of which operations were compromised. Chambers laughed bitterly. You have no idea what you're asking. Werner's encryption would blind our most critical national security operations, would still be monitored through legal channels, Batman finished, with proper warrants and oversight, as the law requires. You're living in a fantasy world, Chambers countered. Do you truly believe the intelligence community will allow this? EMP won't have a choice, because option 2 is that all of this evidence goes public, to the press, to Congress, to your agency's internal affairs division. And your identity revealed, Chambers countered, a desperate gambit. Batman's expression remained unchanged. Release that information. See what happens. Something in Batman's tone gave Chambers pause. The absolute certainty, the lack of concern. You've prepared for that, the director realized. Years ago, Batman confirmed. Chambers finally nodded once. I accept your terms. As Chambers signed his resignation letter, Slade moved casually toward the door. My part in this arrangement is concluded. Not quite, Batman said. There's still the matter of my identity. Consider it professional courtesy, Slade replied after a moment's consideration. Your secret remains yours, unless someone offers a contract specifically for that information. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best arrangement Batman could realistically expect from someone like Deathstroke. Until next time, Slade said with a slight nod before slipping out the door. 3 days later, Bruce Wayne stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Wayne Enterprises office. Behind him, Lucius Fox reviewed the final acquisition paperwork for Werner Technologies. The board unanimously approved, Lucius reported. Werner's encryption patents transfer to Wayne Enterprises, effective midnight, and the stipulations regarding open-source implementation. Included as directed, the core technology will be made available to public institutions, journalism organizations, and human rights groups within 30 days. Their conversation was interrupted by Bruce's secure phone. The caller ID displayed unknown, but Bruce recognized the encrypted channel. Wayne, he stated. Quite a resume you're building, came Slade Wilson's voice. Corporate titan, vigilante, now taking on the intelligence community. What do you want, Slade? To offer a professional observation, Deathstroke replied. Chambers was just one head of the Hydra. There are others who will see Werner's encryption as a threat. I'm counting on it, Bruce responded. A short chuckle came through the line. Of course you are. The games never end for you, do they, Wayne? Next time won't be as cordial, Bruce warned. I would hope not, Slate replied. Professional courtesy has its limits. The line went dead. Bruce pocketed the phone, turning back to the Gotham skyline where evening shadows lengthened across the city. Trouble? Lucius inquired. Always, Bruce answered. But tonight, we won. As night fell completely, the bat's signal illuminated the clouds above Gotham, the city's call to its dark protector. Bruce Wayne headed toward the private elevator that would take him to the secure garage. Batman was needed. In the shadows of Gotham, the game continued, and the night was still young. The confrontation with Deathstroke had left its mark on Gotham, not just in the physical destruction at the Modern Art Museum, but in the ripples through both the criminal underworld and intelligence community. Director Chambers' sudden resignation from the NSA had made national headlines, though the official story cited only personal reasons and health concerns. For Bruce Wayne, the acquisition of Werner Technologies proceeded as planned, bringing revolutionary encryption technology under Wayne Enterprises' protective umbrella. The technology would be deployed selectively, protecting the vulnerable while maintaining necessary transparency for legitimate security operations. Yet the encounter with Slade Wilson had left Bruce uneasy. Deathstroke was still out there, one of the few people alive who knew Batman's true identity. A dormant threat, contained for now by professional courtesy and mutual respect. But for how long? Alfred had noted the change in Bruce's demeanor during the weeks following the confrontation. The increased security protocols, the extra hours reviewing contingency plans, the heightened vigilance during patrols. Preparing for the inevitable rematch, sir? Alfred had asked one evening as Bruce analyzed Deathstroke's combat patterns for the dozenth time. Just being thorough, Bruce had replied, though they both knew it was more than that. The night had brought victory but also vulnerability, and in Gotham, vulnerability never went unexploited for long. And so our tale of Gotham comes to an end. Let the gentle night embrace you as you drift toward peaceful dreams, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Dark Knight watches over his city. If you're not asleep yet, we will now play the ambience of Gotham City at night to help you fall asleep. And if you were just listening to our tales, we will see you next time. Good night and sleep well.